I'm Taylor Hall, and I am doing the Orton-Gillingham Approach versus the Barton system. So first I want to talk about the Orton-Gillingham approach. So I just want to say, like, what is it exactly? It is a multi-sensory structured instructional approach. So this brought in the IMSE, which is the Institute of Multi-Sensory Education. And this is for students that have a difficulty in reading, writing, and spelling that is mostly associated with dyslexia. But it does not have to always have students with dyslexia. It can have students with other learning disabilities as well. And they use a multisensory approach to allow the students the ability to really get a grasp on what it is that they're learning, so that they are able to not only read the word, but able to write it and spell it correctly and recognize it when they see it. So Samuel Orton and Anna Gillingham were the founders of the Orton-Gillingham Approach. So Samuel Orton was a neuropsychiatrist and a pathologist pioneer, and he focused his attention on reading failure and related language processing difficulties. He identified dyslexia as an educational problem. And then Anna Gillingham was a gifted teacher, and she was a psychologist with superb mastery of language. She compiled and published instructional materials providing the foundation for student instruction and teacher training. So there's a picture of both of them. So here are some of the pros about the Orton-Gillingham approach. Is that it's mainly associated with a one-to-one instruction, so one student and one teacher. But it can be used in small group instruction. It just cannot be used in a whole class. It is personalized for each student. It's also flexible because it has to accommodate to where the student is at, and if the student is not ready to move on yet, then they will repeat something until they're able to move on. And then it's also structured, like I said, for each student. It's also successfully adapted for students with math difficulties, so it's not just for reading, writing, that's mainly what it's about, but it has adapted for students with math difficulties. And it's mainly focused on the learning needs of an individual student and not a class as a whole. Some of the cons are that it's really relies heavily on the drill technique and just like doing things over and over again. And it can be kind of time consuming for the teacher just because it is so personalized, and that it has to be so inclusive in that you have to have small groups or one-to-one. And there is more than likely, if you're in a small group, there's probably going to be a lot of reteaching because some of the students are not going to be at the same level. Even if you try to group them in similar levels, they are not always going to be exactly the same and not going to move on at the same pace. Therefore, you have to stay where the lowest child is. So there's going to be a lot of reteaching for the child that does not have a problem of understanding this one thing, but the other child has problems with it. And then also the training costs for learning how to do the Orton-Gillingham approach is very high. But in comparison, we have the Barton system, and this is also known as the Bright Solutions for dyslexia. So this is also for students who struggle with spelling, reading, and writing due to dyslexia or another learning disability. So Susan Barton was the one that developed this method. She was a frequent and popular speaker at conferences who focused on dyslexia, reading instruction, early intervention, RTI, and adult literacy issues. She was an instructor of phonemic awareness and multisensory teaching techniques through the University of California. She taught learning disabilities at West Valley College, and at the graduate level, she taught courses on screening for dyslexia, tutoring people with dyslexia, and understanding dyslexia and ADHD, through University of San Diego. She was recently inducted into the International Dyslexia Association's Hall of Honor for her work in it. But what really sparked her interest into going into the field and trying to understand dyslexia better was that she did not begin her career in this. She actually began her career in the computer field for the first 20 years of her professional life. But she watched her nephew have difficulty in school, and in 10th grade, even though he was receiving special ed services and had been since he was in 1st grade, the schools were telling, he was only reading on a 2nd grade level in 10th grade, and he was spelling on a 1st grade level. And the school basically told the family that they need to just accept the fact that her nephew was never going to get better at it, that he was probably going to stay around the same for the rest of his life. But Susan Barton did not want to accept that, so she changed her fields and devoted her time fully to figuring out the dyslexia puzzle. So she made it her sole mission that when developing the Barton system, that she was going to educate parents and teachers about the causes, the symptoms, and the research-based solutions for children and adults with dyslexia. So we're going to watch a little video about what the Barton system really is. Yeah.
The Barton system is unusual in both how we teach and what we teach. It's a simultaneously multisensory, structured, explicit, and systematic phonics approach that teaches students how to read and spell by sounding out instead of memorizing. Our teaching sequence is also unusual because we show students the logic of our language, starting with the most common and working down to the least common for spelling. And every lesson begins using colored tiles. You'll see why that's useful in just a moment. But this demo will not show you the entire Barton system, and I'm not going to be starting at the very beginning. I'm going to be showing you our logical sequence and how we integrate reading and spelling, while I show you how we teach syllable division. So at this point, a student would already have mastered the 7 essential phonemic awareness skills, all of the short vowels, consonants, and digraphs, and could easily read or spell any word that had up to 7 sounds, as long as the word had only 1 vowel, like this. These color-coded letter tiles are an essential part of the Barton system. By now, a student would know that each tile represents a sound, and they would know to look at the letter on each tile to sound out a word. By the way, these square tiles also make it harder to guess at a word by looking at its shape. And notice that the vowel is a different color than the consonants. That's because my students are quite confused about vowels. Everything in our system is designed to clarify what the vowel is doing. That's why it's a different color. And during the demo, you'll see how easy it is to explain syllable division when the vowels stand out. Here to help me with the demo is Cindy Polanco. She's been tutoring her son with the Barton system, but today she's going to act as my student. Cindy, you can now easily read and spell words this long. So now you're ready to learn about syllable types. Our entire language has only 7 kinds of syllables, and this kind is called a closed syllable because it follows 2 rules. First rule, how many vowels in that word?
1.
Just 1. So to be a closed syllable, it can have only 1 vowel.
Okay.
But where that vowel is also important. Notice it's not at the end. It's closed in at the end by 1 or more blue tiles. So to be closed, it's got to follow both rules. How many vowels?
Only 1.
Only 1. And closed in at the end by 1 or more blue tiles.
Okay.
So let me ask you, if I took this away, would it still be closed?
Yes.
Yes. How about if I took this away, would it still be closed?
No.
No, because it's only 1 vowel. It's got to be closed in by 1 or more blue tiles. Now, what if I took this away? Is it closed?
It's closed.
What about if I took this away? Is it still closed?
It's still closed.
You're absolutely right. Because it's still got only 1 vowel, and it's still closed at the end. There might be some blue tiles here, but those are optional.
So there is just a little bit of an example of what the Barton, or how the Barton system works. Let me get back to my slide. So basically, this is a tutoring system, and it is an intense intervention for students who struggle to easily and accurately decode words when they're reading. So it's really for students who, by 2nd grade, are slow and inaccurate readers, and they struggle with spelling. It has been approved to be used in California, Colorado, and Arkansas. And these boards of education of all these states have approved it and have set it in place in their schools. And it also supports the Common Core and the No Child Left Behind Act because of how the rules are set up. It supports that in its system. It's also different. It is a little different from the Orton-Gillingham approach, but it's not entirely different because the Barton system did originally branch from the Orton-Gillingham approach. They are both sensory. They differ in the way in which they're taught and the setting because the Orton-Gillingham is meant to be used in a classroom. Although it is to stay one-to-one or small group, the Barton system is supposed to be used as a tutoring method outside of the school as reinforcement. Also, having the colored tiles differentiates it as well. So basically, in conclusion, I do not think that necessarily I could speak and say that one is better than the other, just because I think it depends on the student. Every student learns differently, and I did some research to find out, like, is there a significant difference in why one might be better than the other? And all I could find was that every parent or teacher that has used these systems has said one is better than the other for their individual student. Each one learns differently, and so therefore you can't say that one is better for all students than it is for others, because they all learn differently, therefore they're all going to need accommodations differently. And here are my sources. Thank you.